What I'm about to tell you is going to shake you to your core. I've been tracking cryptocurrency markets for years, and I've never seen anything quite like what's happening with XRP right now. We're witnessing something that could make early Bitcoin investors look like small-time players, and most people have absolutely no idea what's coming. Let me be crystal clear from the start. This isn't speculation. This isn't hopium. This is raw data that's been staring us in the face, and the implications are absolutely terrifying for anyone not already positioned in XRP. I'm talking about a supply shock so severe that it could send XRP from $3 to $30 faster than you can blink. Here's what's happening right now, and I need you to listen carefully because your financial future might depend on understanding this moment in history. Coinbase, the largest cryptocurrency exchange in the United States, has just experienced the most dramatic XRP supply crash I've ever witnessed. We're talking about a 90% reduction in available XRP supply in just 3 months. 90%. Let me paint you the full picture of what this means. Back in June, Coinbase was sitting pretty with nearly 1 billion units of XRP in their reserves. That's right. 970 million units of XRP just sitting there, ready to be traded. Fast forward to today, and they're down to less than 100 million units. We went from 970 million to under 100 million in 3 months. That's not a decline. That's a financial earthquake. But here's where it gets even more insane. The number of cold wallets holding XRP on Coinbase has collapsed from 141 wallets down to just 6 wallets. 6. Each of those remaining wallets contains approximately 16.5 million units of XRP. Do the math with me. 6 times 16.5 million equals 99 million total units remaining. That's it. That's all Coinbase has left. Now, I know what you're thinking. Maybe people are just moving their XRP to personal wallets for security reasons. Sure, that accounts for maybe 10% of this movement. But where did the other 90% go? That's the trillion-dollar question that's keeping me up at night, and the answer is going to make some people incredibly wealthy while leaving others on the sidelines wondering what hit them. Let me share something with you that most people don't understand about how institutional money moves. When BlackRock or Fidelity or any major financial institution wants to buy a massive amount of cryptocurrency, they don't just log into Coinbase like you and I do. They use something called Coinbase Prime, which is exclusively for institutional clients. This is where the real money moves in complete darkness, away from retail investors like us. Here's what I believe is happening behind the scenes, and the evidence is overwhelming. There are currently 19 different XRP ETF applications sitting at the SEC right now. 19. Grayscale's application has a definitive deadline of October 18th, then 21 shares on October 19th, Bitwise on October 20th, Canary Capital, Wisdom Tree, Franklin Templeton, and several others by October 25th. These aren't small players. These are trillion-dollar asset management companies that manage more money than most countries' entire GDP. And they're all betting big on XRP. But here's the kicker. They're not waiting until their ETFs get approved to start buying. They're accumulating right now, while XRP is still trading under $3. Remember what BlackRock did with Bitcoin? They started buying at $15,000. Long before they even submitted their ETF application. By the time their Bitcoin ETF was approved, Bitcoin had already rocketed to over $60,000. BlackRock knew exactly what they were doing. They accumulated cheap, then launched the product that would drive massive institutional demand. The exact same playbook is happening with XRP right now, and the supply data from Coinbase proves it. These institutions are quietly vacuuming up every available XRP token through dark pools and institutional trading platforms that you and I don't have access to. They're causing the very supply shock that's going to launch XRP into the stratosphere. Let me explain supply and demand in the simplest terms possible, because this is crucial to understanding what's about to happen. Imagine there are 10 XRP tokens for sale at $3 each. It would take $30 of buying pressure to push the price to $3.01. Now imagine 50% of those tokens disappear from the market. Suddenly, it only takes $15 to move the price. Now imagine 90% disappears. Now it only takes $3 to create the same price movement. This is exactly what's happening on a massive scale across all major exchanges. The order books are getting thinner by the day, and when institutional demand hits through these ETFs, we're looking at a price explosion that could make the 2017 crypto bull run look like a warm-up act. But the supply shock is only part of the story. Let me tell you about the demand side of this equation, because this is where things get absolutely wild. Jake Garnier, one of the most respected analysts in the crypto space, just released a prediction that has me questioning whether I'm holding enough XRP. He's predicting $10 to $13 XRP by the end of 2025, and that's just from ETF demand alone. Not utility, not adoption, not partnerships, just ETFs. Think about that for a second. If institutional ETFs alone can drive XRP from $3 to $13, what happens when you add in everything else? What happens when you factor in Ripple's partnerships with central banks? What happens when cross-border payments start flowing through the XRP ledger at scale? What happens when the tokenization of real-world assets takes off? I'll tell you what happens. We're not talking about $13 XRP anymore. We're talking about XRP prices that most people can't even wrap their heads around. But let's stay conservative for now and focus on what's directly in front of us. The institutional money that's about to flood into XRP through these ETFs is going to be unprecedented. We're talking about $5 to $8 billion of new money entering the XRP market before the end of this year. $5 to $8 billion chasing less than 100 million available tokens on the largest US exchange. The math is simple, and the outcome is inevitable. Here's something else that's keeping me awake at night. Over 80% of XRP's total supply hasn't moved in over a year. 80%. That means the vast majority of XRP holders are diamond hands who believe in the long-term vision and aren't selling. When you combine that with the institutional accumulation we're seeing, you've got a powder keg that's ready to explode. But there's more. Ripple, the company behind XRP, owns 43 billion tokens in escrow that they release monthly. Now, normally, people see this as a negative because it represents potential selling pressure. But think about it from Ripple's perspective. They have 43 billion reasons to want XRP's price to go as high as possible. Do you think they want to sell their tokens at $3? Or would they rather sell them at $30 or $300? Ripple is one of the most incentivized companies in the world to see XRP succeed. They have an entire business development team working around the clock to bring more banks, more payment processors, more financial institutions onto the XRP ledger. Every new partnership, every new use case, every new customer adds real utility and demand to the XRP ecosystem. And speaking of utility, this is where XRP separates itself from every other cryptocurrency in ways that most people don't fully appreciate. While Bitcoin is digital gold and Ethereum is a smart contract platform, XRP is the only cryptocurrency specifically designed to be the bridge currency for the global financial system. It can settle cross-border payments in 3 to 5 seconds for fractions of a penny. Traditional wire transfers take days and cost $25 to $50 each. The global cross-border payments market is worth over $150 trillion annually. Let me repeat that. $150 trillion moves across borders every single year. If XRP captures even 1% of that market, we're talking about $1.5 trillion of annual volume flowing through the XRP ledger. At current prices, that would require XRP to be worth hundreds of dollars per token just to provide adequate liquidity. But here's what really gets me excited. The regulatory clarity that XRP has achieved in the United States is about to become a massive competitive advantage. While other cryptocurrencies are still fighting regulatory battles, XRP has clear guidance from the courts that it's not a security when sold to retail investors. This clarity is exactly what institutional investors have been waiting for. The Genius Act that was recently signed has removed even more regulatory barriers for companies like Ripple to expand their technology and partnerships. We're moving from the questioning phase to the implementation phase, and that transition is happening right now, in real time. Let me share some numbers that will help you understand the wealth-building potential we're looking at. If you own 50,000 XRP and the price reaches $10, that's $500,000. At $13, that's $650,000. You don't need XRP to reach $100 or $1,000 to change your life. Even modest price increases from current levels represent generational wealth for positioned investors. But let's say you're not holding 50,000 XRP. Let's say you have 10,000 tokens, or 5,000, or even 2,500. At $10 per XRP, those holdings become $100,000, $50,000, and $25,000 respectively. For many people, that's enough to pay off student loans, put a down payment on a house, or start a business. The opportunity we're looking at isn't just about getting rich. It's about financial freedom and security for regular people who position themselves correctly before the institutions finish accumulating and the price explodes upward. Now, I need to address the elephant in the room. Why isn't XRP already at $10 or $20 if all of this institutional accumulation is happening? The answer is actually quite simple, and it's happening right in front of our eyes. The price is being suppressed at current levels by this very accumulation. Look at the XRP chart over the past few months. Despite all the positive news, despite the supply shock, despite the ETF applications, XRP has been trading in a tight range between 270 and 280. That's not retail investor behavior. That's institutional money creating a floor and preventing the price from dropping while they accumulate as much as possible before their ETF products launch. This is exactly what we saw with Bitcoin before the institutional ETFs launched. The price was held at certain levels while the smart money accumulated, and then boom, explosive price action once the products went live and retail demand kicked in. The difference with XRP is that the supply constraints are much more severe than they were with Bitcoin. Bitcoin has a predictable inflation schedule that everyone can calculate. With XRP, the vast majority of tokens are already distributed, and what's available on exchanges is disappearing faster than anyone anticipated. When these XRP ETFs launch and millions of new investors suddenly have access to XRP through their retirement accounts and investment portfolios, where are those tokens going to come from? The exchanges are already running on fumes, long-term holders aren't selling, and institutions are still accumulating. It's a perfect storm for explosive price action. Let me paint you a picture of what I think is going to happen over the next 6 months. October 18th, Grayscale's XRP ETF gets approved. Within days, millions of dollars of new investment flows into XRP. The price jumps from $3 to $5 almost immediately as available supply gets absorbed. October 19th and 20th, 21 shares and Bitwise ETFs launch. More institutional money flows in. Available supply on exchanges drops even further. XRP breaks $6 then $7 as FOMO starts to kick in among retail investors who finally realize what's happening. By October 25th, when the remaining ETF applications are approved, XRP is trading north of $10 and climbing fast. Retail investors who waited too long are now buying in at prices that early accumulators only dreamed of just months earlier. But here's the really crazy part. That's just the beginning. Once XRP establishes itself in the $10 to $15 range and proves it can sustain those levels, the next wave of institutional adoption begins. Pension funds, sovereign wealth funds, and corporate treasuries start adding XRP to their portfolios as a legitimate financial asset. The tokenization of real-world assets starts to take off, with XRP serving as the settlement layer for trillions of dollars worth of tokenized bonds, real estate, commodities, and other assets. Central banks begin using XRP for their own cross-border settlements as the technology proves itself at scale. At that point, we're not talking about $10 or $20 XRP anymore. We're talking about XRP prices that most people today would consider impossible, but that become inevitable once you understand the mechanics of what's being built. The global financial system is undergoing the most significant transformation since the creation of the Federal Reserve, and XRP is positioned to be the plumbing that makes it all work. The institutions know this. The smart money knows this. The question is, do you know this? And more importantly, are you positioned to benefit from it? Here's what I think is going to separate the winners from the losers over the next 12 months. The winners are the people who understand that we're in the final accumulation phase before the real price discovery begins. They're adding to their positions on any dips, they're not getting shaken out by short-term volatility, and they're preparing for the wealth transfer that's coming. The losers are going to be the people who wait for confirmation before buying. They're going to wait until XRP is at $8 or $10 before they feel safe investing. They're going to wait until every financial news channel is talking about XRP's incredible gains. By then, the early positioning opportunity will be gone forever. I'm not here to give you financial advice. I'm here to share data and analysis that most people either don't have access to or don't understand the implications of. The supply shock happening on Coinbase isn't just a number. It's a signal that the institutional accumulation phase is reaching its final stages. When BlackRock, Fidelity, and the other trillion-dollar asset managers have finished accumulating, when their ETF products are live and attracting billions in investment flows, when the supply constraints reach critical mass, that's when XRP transitions from a $3 speculative investment to a $30 financial infrastructure asset. The transformation is already underway. The data is clear. The opportunity is in front of us right now. The question isn't whether XRP is going to explode in price. The question is whether you're going to be positioned to benefit when it does. I've been following cryptocurrency markets for years, and I've never seen a setup quite like this. The combination of regulatory clarity, institutional adoption, supply constraints, utility growth, and technical development is creating a perfect storm that could mint more millionaires in the next year than any asset class in history. But here's the thing about perfect storms. They don't wait for everyone to get ready. They don't announce themselves with flashing lights and warning sirens. They build quietly in the background until one day they explode with force that nobody was prepared for. That explosion is coming for XRP, and the fuse has already been lit. The question is simple. Are you going to be watching from the sidelines, or are you going to be positioned to ride the wave? The choice is yours, but the window is closing fast. Every day that passes is another day that institutional money accumulates more XRP at current prices. Every day is another day closer to ETF approvals that will unlock unprecedented demand. Every day is another day that the supply available on exchanges gets thinner and more constrained. I know what I'm doing with my money. I know where I'm positioned. The data doesn't lie, the institutional activity doesn't lie, and the supply shock we're witnessing doesn't lie. XRP is about to explode, and when it does, it's going to separate those who understood what was happening from those who wished they had paid attention. The biggest wealth transfer in cryptocurrency history is beginning right now, and XRP is at the center of it all. Don't say nobody warned you about what was coming. The signs are everywhere. The data is clear. And the opportunity of a lifetime is staring us right in the face. This is your moment. This is your chance. This is the supply shock that changes everything. What you do next is up to you.